Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with the crew today.
I'm Nate.
I'm Dave.
Ryan.
And today we're going to do D&D monsters, and we're going to talk about the Ogre, the Half-ogre, and the Oni.
And you can find this Ogre starting on 237 through 239.
But before we do, you guys can go down to the description below and sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, where you get weekly tips and even learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Back to ogres.
So the Ogre, the Ogrelon, Half-ogre, however you want to call it, and the Oni are definitely pretty cool monsters to use.
They're staples that go way back, to the very origins of the game. They're classics.
In one of my recent sessions, I used the Oni or the Ogre Mage. I've always found that they're pretty cool monsters to use.
I've also recently used one, and one of my most memorable character experiences was a character that reincarnated in first edition into an Ogre Magi.
It had to be a nice little bump.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, things went really bad for that character.
And he had already died, so...
Yeah.
It's all, you would think it's all downhill from there.
But it wasn't.
No, it was uphill.
So, ogres, I've used them in different ways. Ryan was reminding me in one of the campaigns I had, I actually had my ogre thanes, which it was a kingdom ruled by ogre magi's with their ogre subjects would follow them, and they were all kind of themed off of Aztec culture, and they it was on they were seated on islands, and they would war with, anybody who was near them, of course.
Anybody they could pick a fight with.
Yeah, pretty much. But, going along that same thing, especially the way, the Aztec religion was kind of brutal. There was a lot of human sacrifice and stuff in that.
They also had cool, violent sports. Yeah.
They did have cool, violent sports. So, why not, take that and,
map it onto these guys.
Yeah, you can map it onto these guys, and they'd probably keep slaves, lots of slaves.
To keep score to the games, because most ogres can't even count to 10. So you need the slaves to even just add up the scores of the teams if they score higher than 10.
Well, that's true, and it would probably be beneath the ogre thanes, the ogre magi themselves to know.
Keep the score, yeah.
But it says, one of the favorite things of the ogre magi is human babies. So, how do you get human babies on a regular basis? You need to breed humans.
It's true. You need to keep a larder of them. Yeah.
Yes.
So they would human farm.
They would absolutely human farm. And you could do it one of two ways, or maybe they actually do both, which is one would be to just keep slaves, or two would be have outlying tribes of humans
that they raid.
Maybe they don't even raid
or they do a tribute.
Yeah, they have to pay tribute.
Yeah.
Every whatever it is, and if there's enough groups, they can hit a different one every month or week or whatever.
Right.
Especially if maybe there's only one bloodline of Oni, ogre magi. So it's not too much competition for the resources.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they can get human babies as much as they want.
So now the ogres is just straight up D&D monsters. They're brutes. They're thugs. I love the the RP sections in there that talk about they're easy to fool, but don't try to get too fancy with your words, or
you'll piss them off.
You'll piss them off, and they'll just eat you.
They like to hurt things that they don't understand.
The nice thing too is you have Half-ogre and Ogre, which is CR 1 and 2,
right?
And then from there you jump up to the Oni, which is CR 7. So clearly the boss monster. And then the other thing about ogres is they actually kind of work really well with other monsters, humanoids. They're willing to be anybody's bully boy, and they don't even care. And they especially love to take orders from giants. So they're like, sign me up, boss. Because the giants, which in 5th edition they did a really cool thing with the ordering, and basically it's this hierarchy system and pecking order that all the giants follow, and the ogre's actually part of it, but they're at the very bottom.
They always accept themselves as the bottom rung of it.
Yeah, they're very happy to be there.
Yeah, right. They're like, as long as we can look up at you. So, I mean, by the point where you're making ogres errand boys to giants, that's probably a pretty high level campaign. You're probably talking a 7th to 10th level party. When you're fighting groups of ogres, because ogres are pretty nasty unto themselves.
Yes.
They can deal substantial damage.
But I mean, they are still only CR2s.
Yeah, but a gang of ogres could put a hurting on a party, for sure. So that's something to consider. Especially you start like giving them like some decent armor, like something a little better than hide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Somebody's gonna have to teach them how to wear it because they're dumb ogres. But,
I think part of the consideration though is like with an ogre, you pretty much always hit. The only thing gets hit more than an ogre is a zombie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally have almost animal-like armor class.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also too because their dex is a dumb stat or whatever. But yeah, man, you put a suit of half plate on these, like particularly well trained, smart for an ogres.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You called the dex their dat stomp. There's dump stat.
Oh yeah, I was
Yeah,
I was
it's one of
ignoring
many.
I was ignoring their mentals.
Because they don't have them.
Yeah.
I mean, Nate was sitting here going through the checklist of how many animals are smarter than the ogre.
There's a lot of creatures
Including
in the back
the
of
awakened
book.
shrub.
Yes,
Yeah.
the awakened shrub definitely tops.
And
the
lots
other.
of things more charismatic than an ogre.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure too.
Yeah.
Lots of animals.
And I've had a lot of fun using ogres. I comboed one with a mimic that would hang out as a little puddle in a mountainside that had a coin dropped in it. And so the idea was, they'd come by and reach their hand into the water and get stuck. And then the ogre would take
That's a good
whatever
one.
else
That's
he
a
wanted.
real dick move. You're like, there's something shiny in a puddle.
Yeah.
I can't get my hand out of the
and
puddle.
then-
I feel like the ogre is dumb enough to fall for his own trick.
Well,
Like that should have been the joke of it. Like I think ogres are fantastic for
This is what
comedic
happens
relief.
once a day.
There's like a random roll chart to see whether he makes his
the
intelligence
mimic
check.
puddle will form a forehead and again.
Yeah. Well, because
Like, how many times do I have to tell you?
Yeah.
It's the trap.
what it is it should be like a DC 5 intelligence check that if the ogre fails, he's actually caught by the trap.
Well, that's what I think must
failed.
happen every once in a while, and he just slaps it.
Yeah.
And so he remembers this thing because it happened so many times, so he calls it puddle. So
Yeah.
when the PCs heard it, he'd be like, "Let go of my puddle," and which sounds like a stupid sentence, but it actually is true because he calls the mimic puddle. It's like a bet
Yeah.
that he has to slap off him every once in a while when he forgets that it actually doesn't have a coin in it.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So my puddle, and puddle is actually the one holding them.
Yeah, exactly. So ogre is just like, "Get off of my pet," and comes and stomps everybody. It was a very deadly encounter for third level characters.
Yeah, and I imagine like an ogre being infinitely amused by mimic too, because they didn't look like anything. Like,
Yeah, it just keeps changing
because
shape.
the mimic can speak common, can it not? Right?
They do have
So
I'm
if-
not sure, but
Probably the mimic speaks a language better than the ogre can speak a language.
yeah.
Well, the ogre only has giant. This is it can understand a few basic words. of
Yeah, it
common.
says a few things in comments.
No, it also says it barely speaks giant. Like they're barely verbal too. So
Yeah.
there's that.
When we're talking with a 5 intelligence here, that's
It's pretty bad.
awakened shrub Ted. Blows it out of the water.
super genius.
Yeah, so I enjoy using them in that kind of. I mean, as long
Yeah, I
as
kind of want to use an ogre with an awakened shrub, and the awakened shrub's the boss.
Yeah. it just like shakes orders at the ogre, and the ogre interprets it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm imbued with the power of your giant gods. There we go.
Nice.
So, highlighting their stupidity, I think, is the best way to use the ogre. Highlighting their strength and highlighting their level of idiocy is the best way.
Well, I mean, it does say like legendary stupidity.
Yeah, you got to show that off. I mean,
Yeah.
it's legendary for a reason everyone knows about.
So earlier we were talking about the Vorpal sword, and I think legendary stupidity counts as a legendary action. So therefore, they
they're
should be
immune.
immune too.
Yeah, I mean, you chop that guy's head off, he doesn't get much dumber. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about. Yeah, we were just having a little fun comparing what's actually stupider than an ogre, or what's smarter than an ogre. So we looked at ogre zombie. We're a little disappointed because it would be funny if they got smarter when they became zombies,
yeah.
but they do not.
Yeah, their intelligence does just drop a little bit from becoming mindless undead.
All right, so the half ogres, there's not all that much different in comparison.
So it used to
Yeah.
be that the Ogrelons of past editions that they would have like bony ridges and plates on them that would make them a little bit
There was
better armored.
There was two different versions of the half ogre,
Yeah.
the Ogrelon and then the half ogre, and
Right.
the Ogrelon was like.
I thought it was an orc ogre. Was it?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
that's what it
orc
is.
half
Yeah.
ogre, yeah.
But they had this weird mutation where they would have bony ridges all over their body.
And they punched the crap out of it.
Yeah, and they would fight with their fists, and their fists actually did like 2 to 5 points of damage per punch.
Yeah, and they had a pretty bumpy armor class because they had bony plates everywhere.
Well, the half-ogre's way smarter, wiser, and more charismatic than the ogre.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely use a half-ogre as leading a band of ogres.
Yeah.
You know, it would probably be able to manipulate them into doing what they want.
Yeah,
or
when it gets
bribe.
rough with them, he could just be like, "Look over there," and then he slaps him with the club when he looks over
I
there.
mean, both ogre and half-ogre speak common and giant, technically. I mean, they have it listed as their language is known. You know, it does say about ogres when they gather in small groups, they don't actually form true tribalism. They're still beneath that. They probably almost have more like a pack mentality than anything. Poor ogres.
But you know the half ogres are cool. It does give you the ability to say let's spice it up with hobgoblin, bugbear, or orc.
Just not the worst halflings or elves because
they'll eat them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean that's pretty cool. I'm now envisioning a hobgoblin or a bugbear mixed with an ogre could definitely be something visually different to look at.
Yeah, then you could just use all the stats for the half-ogre.
Also, too,
You got a
that
whole
makes it
bunch of
great
them.
because the bugbear's favorite tactic is sneaking up on people and then murdering them,
Strangling,
like
yeah.
strangling them to death, like not even like having a fair fight at all.
Right.
Like taking a half ogre and giving it very bugbear-like tactics would be kind of fun.
That's because a fair fight is for chumps. So the other interesting thing too is to take your half ogre and almost make it like the diplomat to your ogre gangs.
The envoy, yeah.
Yeah, well, because they're smart enough to realize like if you just squish everything that you can't keep coming back and taking their stuff, possibly, and
You
they
could
work
almost
out-
be like a mob boss sort of
Yeah.
mentality.
You could be the
Like,
good cop with all the bad cops
That's
behind
behind,
you.
yeah.
They're like, look,
my friends just want to eat you all.
it's going to get
It's really-
ugly.
yeah.
You got food, you're going to give it to us, or bad things are going to happen.
Every
it's
month,
like
you're
protection
gonna,
money.
they're running like a racketeering sort of thing. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I don't want to let these guys loose, but when they get hungry, it gets ugly.
What am I gonna do?
And they love halflings.
Yeah, I love the flavor text under this one. Worst dancers ever. Riddle fiddle the satyr on ogres.
So, anything else we want to touch on?
Well, we really didn't touch the ogre magi yet.
And I mean, look at them. You absolutely would want to. I mean, that's one sexy monster there. It's all blue with those indigo claws. Yeah.
They used to have like the single unicorn horn
Yeah,
that they seem to have done away with.
that was back in second edition and before. I don't-
Yeah. I know when I described my ogre magi, I absolutely used the unicorn horn.
And he's purple.
Yeah, well, it was
One
like
eye.
amethyst and
One eye, one horn.
purple people
Flying.
eater. So now these guys are infinitely more intelligent than the ogres and half ogres, twice as smart as a half ogre.
Yes.
And plus their other mental stats are competent as well. They're not clumsy like ogres.
They're just nasty all the way around. Like, they're pretty supery.
They figured out that wearing armor helps you live. So
Yeah.
they actually have a very high armor class.
Well, and they just
for
have a lot
monster.
of magical abilities
Yeah.
too. So like these guys there's a lot of different ways to use them. They're sneaky to begin with. Like it talks about they use their ability to shape change to basically infiltrate communities or get close to their prey. So they can murder them better in their sleep. And something that doesn't really need a surprise attack is getting the surprise attack.
Right.
So it makes it interesting the fact that they can cast darkness and invisibility at will. These are great ambush monsters. They can fly. They pretty much do it all. Like
They
I don't even-
regenerate.
and they regenerate. Yeah, I don't even know. Like I don't even know how these are the same species as the ogre. They're so vastly superior. Although it is interesting they don't mention the giant ordering where these guys fall because I feel like
These guys would feel themselves to be outside of it.
they would definitely be better than hill giants.
Absolutely.
I could definitely see them rolling over, bullying hill giants into doing what they want.
I would think that they would almost be like the dark advisor or vizier kind of guy in the shadows.
Like Jafar.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you'd have this advisor that's a giant kin to you, but isn't part of the hierarchy, like some kind of shadow government almost, but not in charge. But
Are you talking for giants specifically?
yeah, for using the Oni as within the giant hierarchy.
Well, and
but
with
they're
their-
kind of to the side of it.
With their innate sort of polymorphing abilities and invisibility and things like that, they make excellent spies too. So like they can go within the communities that you're trying to invade.
They would be above hill and on par with Stone Giant if you're just looking at the challenge rating.
Yeah,
I would think fire giants just wouldn't trust those guys because
I would like using one of these guys. Like if you're totally going to do like the worm tongue, or or the Jafar, or any of that trope. These guys would be really cool to make the advisor, like you're saying. Especially in a longer campaign where the players really get a chance to really hate this guy, and then it turns out like the voice behind the throne is actually an
evil giant.
We thought you were figuratively a manipulative monster person, but you're actually a manipulative monster.
Yeah,
literally.
He casts Charm Person once a day, so
and they've got the actual mechanics to go behind it. They've got Arcana, Deception, and Perception as skills. So in
addition to shape changing into whatever form they need that's appropriate, and then for those times when the monarch isn't actually doing what they want and resisting them, they can use Charm Monster
or Charm Person. Well, as long as you follow the R-rated version, Charm Person, somebody did it, so you gotta not.
There is that, but we're gonna ignore that because
completely. That's like the worst.
So I would like to use these guys as the. In a non-standard account, or stretch it over at least a couple sessions. Let your players really get to know the character and possibly hate them before they realize why they really should hate them.
And then they're gonna set up this ambush where they're gonna entrap this little advisor guy, whatever.
He's got to be like 6. An old man, or frail or something.
Yeah, he's like 5'6" and he's just a pushover, and then all of a sudden. And
they're like, oh no! Yeah. Well, at least he's not a Rakshasa.
Small blessings. Yeah.
Depending what level you guys are.
So they're expecting this guy to just be like, okay, you figured me out, I submit, slay.
Yeah, here's a glaive in the face.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think? How have you used ogres and their
ogrekin,
their ilk in the past in your games in interesting in different ways? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on Facebook.
You can follow us on Instagram.
And check out the articles over at nerdrookie.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy.